our webinar on health and wellbeing. I'm delighted that so many of you are interested in joining us, and some of you are coming into the room right now. I'm coming from Bray at the moment, so the weather is quite dull, but I understand from Fergal that it's been raining in Cork, so we've got more to look forward to in that regard. So I just want to welcome you all here. We're had great interest in this webinar, with over 450 people signed up to talk to us today. So really looking forward to getting stuck in, and very much like to thank you all for joining us. Thanks, of course, to Aileen and to Fergal for taking the time out of their very busy schedule, but very well balanced schedules, of course, in terms of their work-life balance, to share with us some of their learnings around the whole area of health and wellbeing. It's a very broad area that we're getting into this morning, and I just want to mention just at the beginning, there are many good ideas that you're going to come across today, some of which we won't be able to go into in great detail, because our idea is to give you some broad overview of what has been working in practice across so many different organizations that we have seen in terms of the health and wellbeing space, and what's going on there right now and what's working. So hopefully that will give you some ideas in terms of what you might apply in your own organization. But I suppose it's important to keep in mind at the get-go that all of these things need to be thought about as to how they'll apply in your situation, but hopefully we'll give you some good ideas to kick off. So thank you all so much for getting on board. Akshita is working there in the background to help us, and I'm very thankful to her for helping set up today's webinar. Without further ado, let's get right into it. As you may know, we published a list of best workplaces in health and wellbeing recently, and I'd encourage everybody who's joining us this morning to download the report. We get to speak today to two very important organisations in terms of having made that cut to be a best workplaces in best workplace in health and wellbeing. But of course, there are practices in that brochure, in that report, from 19 other organisations that you might also find inspiring. So I would encourage you to download the report, have a look at what these top organisations are doing, and see what exactly might be practical and useful to you in your own organisation. The other thing that I'd like to do is, actually, if we move on to the agenda there, just to show people what we're going to get into, we're going to look at some of the general learnings there are across best workplaces, and what have we seen sort of generally, some overall ideas to set the scene for Aileen from the IRFU and Fergal from the Kingsley, to get into the detail of those two organisations and what they have done. And then we'll open up the discussion to panel questions that you can interact in any way as you see fit as we go along through the chat, through questions and answers, and through some polls that we're going to put up. But I'd encourage everybody to get involved in the conversation, and I see you all sort of streaming into the room right now. So thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for the kind words in terms of coming on. So Akshita, if we move on there, please. These are our invitations to interact, so please continue to do that. I'm seeing some of that popping up at the moment. And let me get straight into some of the general findings that we've seen across these organizations. So one of the things about Great Place to Work is using our research. We have seen some key things that you can probably apply to every organization because they're almost universally true. And some of the myths that we come across from time to time is this idea that there's a trade-off in terms of a high performance culture between people performing at their best and having a really ambitious and challenging targets and health and well-being. And of course, that is not the case. There's a sweet spot in terms of performance where you will see from the organizations that have been recognized in particular that they are high-performing organizations, that they expect the best performance from their individuals, but they do that where they find a sweet spot between the right level of support and the right level of challenge. We all need purpose. We all need to know that our work is meaningful, and we all want to believe that we're having an impact. But we also need that support and that psychological safety to perform at our best. So one of the things that's very clear is that there across those organizations, there's a sweet spot in terms of achieving that. And that's something to pay attention to in terms of measures and high performance and having a culture that's fit for purpose. I suppose the next thing, and if we move on there, actually, I'd like to point out is sometimes people are at different stages of development in terms of their health and well-being programs in organizations. And there can be an inclination that you really should start somewhere and try and get some scores on the board and try and get something moving in terms of raising awareness, and that you should possibly start with some low-hanging fruit. Well, the findings that we have found across the organizations that are best workplaces in health and well-being is that's not the case. The basics are really important in terms of creating that effective and measurable well-being program. So looking at the graph here of all the statistics that we have gathered, you'll see a really strong correlation of 0.77, which is probably as close as you get to almost a cause and effect correlation, where our measurement in terms of our instrument shows having good relationships between people's managers and trust in managers, and managers having trust in each other, people having getting on well with their colleagues and having pride in their work is so highly correlated with they believing that it's a healthy, an emotionally and psychologically healthy place to work, that this correlation is so strong there can be very little doubt, but that getting the basics right is an essential starting point to any health and well-being program. And in fact, anything less than that can be seen as kind of tone deaf from employees. You know, under the conditions that you're doing, I'm going to say nice things to do like health and well-being talks and so on and so forth. Unless the basics are in place, it's likely to just frustrate your staff and not, I suppose, not be properly positioned. So it's a really important kind of learning in all of this. The next piece there, actually, just want to get into is also this idea of one fits all, one size fits all. So health and well-being is as varied as we are as human beings, and is as varied as we are in organizations. And I see that from the questions that have come in. Some people have been right out the bat in terms of asking questions at the beginning, before we started today's discussion, that you know we're working in very different environments, in very different organizations. Some people working remote, some people are working on site, across different sites, across different sizes, and so on and so forth. So having a varied approach and looking at best practices across different organizations, and I'm going to say bringing a degree of ingenuity and involvement with people is really important in terms of getting the right program to work for your organization. So from that point of view, I think it takes a level of involvement, it takes a level of insight in terms of talking to people and involving them in the design of your program, and seeing that it's varied enough to fit the demographics of the people, of your colleagues that are working with you. And the last one that I'd like to mention there is that, you know, one of the challenges that we come across, I suppose, sitting down with leadership teams as well, how can we measure these things, and how do we know that we're going to get a return on investment? And it is also worth paying attention to that. So sometimes in organizations we can see that they are using quite weak measures in terms of whether or not they get attendance at various activities that they offer, or whether or not they provide things like gym membership and so on and so forth. And that's really not convincing oftentimes with a senior team to get senior leaders on board with the importance of the program. Whereas harder measures like absenteeism or regretted losses due to burnout really demonstrate the return on investment in terms of sailing into this area. So having good statistics about your organization, looking at things like whether or not the basics are in place in terms of, for example, our measure, the trust index, can be really important in terms of making the case for that investment and building that culture so that it's fit for purpose. So those are some I suppose, key things that I wanted to mention that's true across all of the organizations that we come across. And it's important to keep in mind as we go into these particular examples this morning. So So with that in mind, just another, I suppose, shout out to the organisations that have been recognised as best workplaces in health and wellbeing. And you can see them there in front of you. And please do download the report, have a look at the report, and have a look at what they're doing and how it is you can engage with that. Now, first person I'd like to introduce you to this morning is of course Aileen Bailey, who's the Chief People Officer in the IRFU. And Aileen has been with the IRFU for almost 10 years, Aileen.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 10 years in September.
And you're the ideal person to talk to about high performance, about a high performance culture and health and well-being for several reasons. Because you've taken an interest in this area for a long time. You've studied it. You've got an advanced diploma in health and well-being, I understand. You also, working for sports organizations over that period of time, are very focused on the idea of high performance and are constantly immersed in that. And of course, you're pretty high performance yourself in that you're studying your master's at the moment. You're a taxi driver to teenage or tween, I suppose, children, you could say, and you lead a busy lifestyle.
Yeah, it's very busy. It's very busy, but I'm sure, like many people on the call, everyone's juggling.
Absolutely. So listen, Aileen, thanks so much for joining us, and it'd be great if you could take us through some of the journey that you've had with the IRFU in terms of your success in the whole health and well-being area and the high performance culture that you have supported and built there over the years.
No problem. Thanks, Tim. We just want to go on to the first slide and we'll start off. Can click on again. Great, thanks a million. Just so how it started, so as Jim said, I'm with the IRFU, I'll be 10 years in September. Prior to that, there wasn't much work going on in this space. There probably wasn't a lot of work going on in this space in any company, so it's not a reflection on the IRFU or where it was at the time. There was an employee survey that was done by the previous HR director, which was really, really helpful when I came in, just to see where things were at for staff. Some of you may be aware we're based in Lansdowne Road, just the opposite end to the Aviva Stadium. So we're based across 3 floors. So I suppose one of the things that came out of that survey at the time was kind of a disconnect between different departments. They weren't working together because it didn't naturally work together. So one of the long-standing initiatives that we put in place was payday pizza, actually, just to bring people up to the canteen and have chat. So I suppose HR, or my method at the time of my madness, was to try and build strong connections. So whatever that might look like for each of the companies on this call, but that was really, really important, and that didn't exist fully at the time. So that initiative is still standing. That employee survey, we really dissected it. There was only myself and one other person in IRFU HR at the time, and we really kind of drilled down in, kind of sensed the appetite or the lack thereof from some people in terms of doing some more work in that space. So lots of people were kind of very welcoming and opening to the idea, but then there were some that weren't so much. So it definitely was a struggle. So anyone that's struggling, I hear you. We started off small, as I said, looking at the feedback, and I definitely had a vision in my head, kind of 3 years, 5 years was as far as I could cope with at the time. And it was only a few years in, so it's probably 5 years in, or maybe 6 years ago, I started engaging with the guys in Great Place to Work, and we went into it not knowing how we would fare. I suppose and to this day, still flick to the back page to see what staff are saying, what's going well, what isn't, how are we going to make those small kind of incremental improvements. But the guys in Great Place to Work have been fantastic over the years. So as I said, we've been with them 5 years. Each of those years we've gotten also credited as best workplace. And this year, we obviously got the health and well-being, and we got the women's best workplace accreditation, which both meant so much to everyone in the IRFU. We also, last year, we achieved the Culture Improvement Award. So I know I've spoken on this in another podcast for Great Place to Work, but that was really the turning point, I feel, if I look at all the different initiatives and different things that we put in place, the different engagement with staff, was the introduction of family-friendly policies. So many of you on this call will have introduced those already. Maybe some have not. But I suppose we kind of built up over time, and we were ready then to put those family-friendly policies in place. And the feedback was just phenomenal. Everyone was enjoying what was going on in this health and wellbeing space. But even people who these policies haven't applied to yet, and they may do in the future, the feedback has been amazing on them. So I think that was really the turning point for us. And I felt, okay, we've maybe not quite arrived, but we're getting there. We're getting competitive in this space. So we've, I think over the last 2 to 3 years, it's kind of all the hard work and the difficult conversations have paid off, certainly.
So when you say turning, when you say turning point, Aileen, is that a turning point in terms of the level of engagement, or I'm going to say confidence in your approach, or what do you mean by turning point?
I always wanted to get to that point where we were offering up things like surrogacy leave and anything within that kind of caring space, but the appetite wasn't maybe fully there. It wasn't fully understood, and how that applied to us. And yes, that happens in other companies, but we really need that here. So everyone was kind of going on the journey together, and there was a real openness to the introduction of it. So I suppose I felt we really achieved, and we got to that kind of milestone. There was plenty of building blocks that were needed, I felt, before we kind of introduced, in our particular company, before we introduced that. And it was received with open arms. It was really good. But I just felt we really had a really strong offering for the staff that we have within the IRFU, and then future staff. It's important to be, I suppose, keeping up with the competition. Like, I suppose a lot of people on this call will see the IRFU as a source of entertainment, which it is. Great rugby matches to go and watch, but there's a huge machine behind it. There's a huge amount of business people. So we have business analysts, we have finance directors, we have HR people, we have operations people, commercial, just like a normal business. And these people can go and work anywhere. So we need to stay competitive. We need to grow with them as well, and kind of be, like, as you said, can't be tone deaf. We need to understand what's going on for people and introduce these policies to stay relevant, so that we can grow with them and they can stay. Like, I'd love to see, we don't have a huge amount of turnover in the IRFU, but I would like to see people feeling that they could stay there till they retire. Like, it is an option for them, that they can kind of live their life, and we understand what's going on outside of work as well, so they can bring their whole self to work. So yeah, it just felt like a milestone, I suppose, maybe not a turning point, but more maybe a milestone for us.
Okay, so next slide there, so Akshita, please.
Thanks a million. In terms of measuring the usual way, we obviously have the surveys of Great Place to Work. We would do pulse surveys from time to time, pre-Great Place to Work, and then through our internet site, just to kind of get a sense of, how something is landing, or what's the feedback from staff. We also put in place a few groups. So Team Huddle is our employee forum group. So these are representatives from around the business, and we would kind of sense check and discuss as a group different initiatives that are coming down the line, or the different woes or ideas that are coming from around the business. So there's a meeting kind of every 2 months, but obviously there's an open door policy in HR, so come and land in whenever. I suppose with these kind of groups, it's fine to be led by HR, but you want people to be engaged and not just HR kind of beating the drum the whole time. You want people that are really advocates for health and well-being, or whatever it is that you're looking at. So these groups have been really, really successful. The groups are really, really engaged, and we've got some assistance, obviously, from Great Place to Work in that regard, with different feedback, and through the network, just linking in with other people. Mental health first aid group. We've got a lot of people trained up as mental health first aiders. We've had that group in situ, I think, about 4 years now. And Donald Scanlon has been a huge resource for us from Mental Health Ireland. So he's been great. People management group, it's great just to have that kind of sense check and kind of check in on different things that are going on, policies, communications around that, different awareness. They're brought in for different training that's coming up. We had St. Michael's House, for example, in with us last week. We had a new starter from St. Michael's House yesterday start with us. So it's just kind of building awareness within those groups and wider than that. But I think it's I suppose those formal meetings, those formal surveys and feedback sessions, you get a sense of, the impact. Has it landed well? Has it not? What do we need to tweak? What do we need to do differently? And what we need to introduce. So that's worked out well for us to date.
So the question has come in there. Aileen. So how do you recruit people for those groups, and how do you choose them, and do you invite volunteers, or is it across the organisation? How do you do that?
Yeah, for us, we invite volunteers. So we go out with a communique, just who's interested in getting involved. And listen, we do work in a hugely busy business all of the time. It's not just when Six Nations are on, it's busy all the time. So it's usually you'll find people that put their hand up are genuinely interested in getting involved. There's many more that will want to, but maybe don't feel they have the time. And it's worked for us to date. We do a check-in kind of every year. Are you still happy? This is the kind of the commitment that we're looking for. And we've had people maybe fall in and out of sports and social and the team huddle over the time, but there's been replacements brought straight in, and it's just down to I suppose work commitments or what's going on for them. But yeah, we put it out. I've heard of other colleagues that have gone and in other companies gone and actually kind of tap people on the shoulder maybe if they haven't had the interest coming back in, but that hasn't had to happen to date.
Okay, we might go to the next slide there. So next sheet, please. So leadership buy-in is really important, Aileen. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's essential that you get the buy-in from early on. And as I said, it was kind of the journey started 10 years ago. So it was so important to I suppose start small, engage early, make sure that the vision is really clear from that director group, CEO, right down and across the organization, so people understand. Include the leaders in the decision making, so they feel a part of it and they're able to answer questions and kind of be bought into the mission, if you like. Show its value. So I think that's really, really important for any kind of skeptics. We did over the time. I've had people who just don't get it and don't want to be involved in it, and I prefer that if someone will ask a question or challenge, and why are you doing this? Like why are we doing this? I prefer that than the people who are nodding and yes to you or in a meeting, but then are actively maybe not engaging in it down the line. I prefer people just to come and say. So I think you need to even if you're starting off on a health and wellbeing journey or throughout, you need to keep the eyes and ears open and constantly kind of being turned on to this and asking the questions and kind of getting a sense check of how things are going. I think it's important that it's not, I think we mentioned this earlier, just it's not only HR or led by HR. You need to get other kind of allies and people, ambassadors around the business. And that's really, really important because you don't want there to become a culture of here's another email from HR. And if you really want to truly embed it, it needs to be throughout the business. And eventually
building that workplace coalition as we all learned in change management.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. And build that up, and eventually the reputation will be built. You're not going to get everybody coming to everything. You're not going to get everybody liking every idea, but that's okay. Just keep going for the people that are engaged. And at the start, we had lower numbers engaged in all of this area, but it builds up over time, and that's okay. But do it for the people that are interested and try and get the rest of them interested. But just don't give up. And it can be frustrating, but just don't give up.
So you have a clear vision, stick with it, expect it to take a while, have good measures behind it, so you'll bring more people along, and then wait for that to build.
Yeah, and be prepared to stay agile as well. Don't go right, set a plan out, a 5-year plan back 10 years ago. Like on day one, that would have looked very different so you need to stay agile, you need to stay listening to people. So yeah, just be prepared to kind of move a little bit.
Go with it,
yeah.
Okay, actually, will we go on there?
So what worked and what didn't. So all of these worked well and didn't over the time. But I suppose for our group of staff, they love the team building days. They love getting together. Team building days would look like in the IRFU, maybe mini Olympics out in the High Performance Centre. So where the teams would train is out in Abbottstown in the National Sports Campus. So it's fantastic, like half pitches, full pitches, all that kind of thing. So go out there, do a kind of a mini Olympics, and there's a barbecue. So we've kind of get into a pattern of doing that annually. And we also do Christmas parties and things like that to get people together. But they love the team building days. Different departments would do team building days as well. Health screenings are always really, really popular year on year. We have a masseuse that comes in on our company day. So we have a company day once a month. So each department, so we're operating on a hybrid culture at the moment. So 3 in, 2 out, or vice versa. But on pay week each month, we have a company day. The masseuse comes in and he's always booked out months in advance. So it's really, really popular with our guys. Live classes can be hit and miss. We have staff that work different hours, or they're traveling overseas. We have people over in Singapore at the moment at the Sevens competition, for example. So, but we work with a company called Umbrella Wellness, and you can log in and look at different webinars, in your own time, or do yoga class or whatever it is. Speakers have always been the most popular. The ones that we found really good. There's been many, but 2 or 3 that we've had over the time. Niall Breslin was fantastic in this space. Brent Pope and Barbara Brennan we had in recently. She's also excellent. So if you're not following them on LinkedIn, do. They're really good speakers in this space and really, really impactful.
Brian, how do you show to senior leadership that these things are actually impactful, right? So I can see that you're getting great engagement with these things.
Yes, yeah.
So how else are you saying to senior leadership, look, we're doing this and we know it's having a real impact?
We're getting staff to talk to senior leadership. We're getting feedback, straight after these sessions, and kind of feeding back in. There's stories being shared. I suppose we've created a culture now of trust, I feel, with the introduction of policies and this health and wellbeing culture. So people are more openly talking to their managers about different difficulties they have, be it with mental health or whatever it is. So the likes of Barbara Brennan coming in, a lot of them went and spoke to. That was really helpful for me. Thank you, for not that allowing, because we would always allow people to take time out to go to these talks. But yeah, people are actively. It's a conversation that's ongoing all of the time, and they're really seeing that the staff in general is a lot happier and engaged than they were previously. So it's quite visible. But yeah, the staff are speaking, and we're getting feedback. So that's kind of how they're seeing it. So fitness challenges, we're a competitive beast in the IRFU, as you can imagine. So they love a fitness challenge as well.
Okay. Akshita, we'll move on there.
So in terms of challenges in sport, there's really, really busy periods. So the likes of Six Nations, Novembers, or summer tours. And it's not only the people that travel, it's also the people who are organising kind of back at office. So we find that difficult in terms of maybe people engaging in the groups, people engaging in the health and wellbeing activities. So we kind of have to tweak over the summer and maybe not do as many live classes, or we do kind of wellness weeks. So we would never do them maybe across the summer or across the Six Nations period or November. So we really do plan around that. So we would lean into our employee forum group, Team Huddle, just to kind of understand the timings around that. But yeah, the busy periods and time from people can be a challenge. I think that's going to be ongoing in sport.
So Aileen, what I'm really hearing here is that while you have an overall vision and plan, you are very agile in your application of that plan and do a lot of listening in order to make sure that you're hitting things at the right time and so on and so forth, and that each of those practices are needed at the time they're delivered and people have the opportunity to engage with them at the time they're delivered.
That's exactly it. And we've been doing that for a few years now. So it's we understand it a lot better, but it did take a while to kind of get used to it. It can be frustrating too, but you have to understand whatever workforce you have in front of you, and you're trying to cater to them. So you need to work with what the timelines that work.
And you say here a present challenge is a busy period. I mean, as far as I can see, looking at your profile, looking at the number of awards you've won, looking at the amount that it looks like that busy period certainly started 10 years ago and is ongoing. I can't see any gap in that busy period, Aileen. So I'm just wondering about that.
It's always busy, but in terms of HR, I suppose you mentioned at the start, I've two kids. I've studied. I go to work 5-6 days a week. I have to work somewhere that there's a challenge and that people are passionate about what they do. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a sport, but I am 16 years now in sport, 10 with the IRFU, and 6. I was almost 6 with the FAI. So I enjoy being around people that are really passionate about what they do, and it's nice to have success, on and off the pitch too. And I just like to kind of drive and have improvements each year. So you present your scores back to us for the great place to work, and it's you're used to me now at this stage. After dealing with it for a few years, it's like, okay, how do we get those small little improvements? How do we do better for everyone? It's really, really important to me, but all of the staff, all of the senior management team, our CEO, that we do have like genuinely a happy, healthy, engaged workforce. So these awards are lovely, but it's all the kind of the substance behind them that allows you to achieve it. That's the important piece. So as long as our staff are happy and we're moving kind of forward and with our goals, it's great. But they do love to win things. In the IRFU, they're competitive, so they love a badge or accreditation.
Good.
They love a competition. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. One last question there, Aileen. So what would you say to somebody who, let's say, who is a smaller? How many do you employ again? Just for everybody here, how many are in the IRFU?
So there's 250. Some are based in 10 to 12 in HBC, and some are based around the provinces. But overall, there's I suppose 1,000 involved in Irish Rugby altogether. But the focus today is the IRFU. Yeah.
It's just but I'm going to say for the smaller organisations on the call today, who may not have, who may not be as far along in this journey as you are, or may not have, may need to design into a smaller organisation. Is there any advice that you'd give to those smaller organisations who are starting off?
Yeah, I think kind of scope out your own ideas, do a bit of research, get on LinkedIn, look at the likes of what the Barbaras and the Bryans are doing of this world, reach out to Donal, scan people in your network and see what's happening, kind of get a grasp and get some idea of what you're kind of thinking, and scope out some kind of a plan. But then very quickly reach out to people, go talk to people, knock on doors and see who in the business wants to get involved and is interested in it. You have 2 or 3 people, including HR, and create your kind of a small little forum and go out and ask the question. Don't be afraid if you are starting out. Like, it's no point in sitting in a room and guessing what people want. You need to go out there and ask them what do they want. And if that's, pulse surveys, a formal survey from Great Place to Work, or whatever it looks like, you just need to get on and start. You don't need massive budgets either. Like, sometimes I think you need to take stock and see what do we actually have in place already, what's there, and then look at if you could have a financial accountant that's a yoga instructor on the side. You could be based in offices that have fabulous walks around, engage with Selena Sláinte. There's lots of free things out there, and maybe you're on a campus that you can share kind of resources, but it's just a matter of just starting off, and you don't need massive budgets at all. There's lots of, you link in with the banks, you can get free financial webinars. There's lots of things that can be done, and just start, and then incrementally, and then look under the pillars and see what you're going to do for this coming year under each. But just don't be doing it alone, kind of in isolation in HR or whoever it's kind of falling to. Do it as a group.
Actually, can we go to the next slide there? So okay, so many of these points you've actually covered, Aileen. You've moved into them, I think. So things like costs and what helps are available and what other resources are there. Actually, can we go on to the next slide there, so please? So this question's important, Aileen, in terms of, I'm going to say, in some ways summing up as well, in terms of, like, you've given some excellent advice there overall, but the question is how important are good workplace relations in terms of achieving, health and wellness?
Yeah, I just think it's so important to get the basics in there. I think when we spoke earlier on, Jim, like, people are expecting it. So people within your organization and then future candidates are expecting it also. to have a happier and more engaged workforce, you need to have those basic steps in place. And I just think there is a massive expectation that it's there. Why wouldn't you be doing it? It's just part of it. When I started out in my career, whatever, 20 years ago, it was a buzzword. It isn't that now. It should be very much part of the culture and policies that you have in place. And you would hope that, you know, you working in a business, your values match, and you're attracting people with similar interests and values, and it just grows from there.
Very good. Well, listen, thanks very much, Aileen. You're going to stay on for some questions, and we're going to hand over to Fergal there. We just ran a poll there a moment ago just to see how important health and well-being strategies are for attracting and retaining staff, with 78% saying extremely important and 21% saying moderately important. So that gives just an indication in terms of how important this is across workplaces in terms of attracting staff. So Fergal, you're about to put up your the personal tips. I think we'll get back to it. Fergal, I think we're going to hand over to your deck right now. So we'll do that. So just to introduce Fergal. Fergal has 3 kids, such as they are. They're a bit grown up at this stage, Fergal, and he's after moving to Cork, I think it was 16 years ago, right? Which is great. He's been working in both Photo Island and the Kingsley. He's the general manager of the Kingsley. In his spare time, he has ran 3 marathons, Rome last year, and a seamless transition into Dingle this year, which is our version of Rome, I think, in some ways. So hopefully a bit cooler for your marathon this year. Fergal, you're also chair of the IHF in Cork, the Irish Hotel Federation. You're very involved in the IHI, the Irish Hotel Institute, the Cork Business Association, nighttime group as well in Cork in terms of the nighttime economy, involved with Fáilte Ireland in terms of development of tourist offerings and so on and so forth across. So in addition to the day job, it looks like you're you're juggling a lot, Fergal.
Yeah, lots going on.
I wonder what I'm doing with my time when I look at all of this. Just how do you fit all that in?
Well, I suppose part of it, you know, it's important for us to have a good profile for the hotel, and you know, to be out there talking to people and to be involved in the kind of local community, Jim, and just sort of doing your best to kind of give back in that way as well. So that makes it sound like a lot more stuff than it is in some ways, but you know, that is something I've tried to do in my career, particularly in recent years, is to try and get out there and to get involved in local groups and do as much as possible, I suppose, for the hospitality sector and for Cork and for the region and everything else.
Yeah, so take us through the Kingsley journey in terms of health and well-being, Fergal.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I put some slides together there, Jim. So I'll start off on those initially, and we can talk through it then. I suppose for the reason why we've got into this whole space, and the hotel has been open now 10 years, and it'll be 10 years this July actually. And we were, I suppose, a bit similar to what Aileen was saying there. We started off with all the right kind of intentions and everything else, but we were doing it against a very kind of busy and early few years in the hotel. We were trying to get everything organized. We were doing things for the right reasons, I would say, but maybe kind of not following through on some of the stuff that we were doing. And we were finding, you know, that was really kind of, we might put something, some measure or some initiative in place. It might be really popular initially, but then we kind of move on to the next thing, and the first thing would kind of peter out. So there wasn't a kind of a coherent strategy, I would say, at that stage. But then kind of as things have evolved, we've kind of recognized the importance of this whole area. You know, first of all, in terms of the productivity, we're seeing that in all our measures and everything else, that the energy levels of everyone involved improves when we focus on this. It reduces absences. It probably encourages innovation and kind of general, I suppose, overall success of the business as well. That's ultimately what we're trying to achieve. The team morale, I suppose, that's essentially again the kind of positive culture that you're trying to get in place. We're trying to build the confidence of the whole team here to interact with each other and to understand where, you know, each department is at and each individual is at, and then also to be able to talk to customers and to, you know, be able to interact with them in a confident manner. Which again, you know, if morale is good, this is very much a kind of an experiential kind of business, as you know, and you've got to, some of the kind of intangible stuff, you've got to have all the facilities, you've got to have everything set up well in the hotel, the service has got to be good, but you've also got that kind of intangible feeling, I suppose, that you want to give guests when they come in, and the key part of that is their engagement with staff and how they interact together. So the more kind of confidence you can give staff to interact well in those situations, the better.
So there's a key piece here that you're linking to, Fergal, which is you're not a lead HR person, you're a leader of the business. And the measures that you're looking at is how it impacts absolutely the people working on the ground, but also how it impacts the business and the guest experience, and the benefits for that are part of the measures of why it is the Kingsley is investing, why you're investing.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know, a lot of what we do here, Jim, obviously we have frameworks and we have SOPs for everything and all that kind of stuff. But for this side of it, you know, a lot of it is to do with engagement with the staff. As Aileen was saying, you're getting feedback from them, you're asking them what they want, and you're trying to bring in, it's a cultural thing. So there isn't a direct set of rules that you kind of follow all the way through. It's a case of trying to, you know, ensure that you're bringing this in across the board, but that's, people don't feel that it's a set of regulations that they have to follow, I suppose, essentially.
Yeah, that it's designed with them in mind, that they're engaged in that design so that Absolutely. They take ownership of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. On the metrics then that we use, obviously, you know, our guest feedback is key to everything we do here. We follow that constantly. We have lots of different measures and lots of different metrics that we use. So we have, you know, online guest surveys that we ask people to fill out after they've stayed here. There are online reviews. There are lots of emails and conversations back and forth, obviously, with guests. We're constantly checking to see how they are while they're here. We're asking them beforehand what their expectations are, and we're asking them afterwards how they got on. And we really see that over the years, that there is a direct correlation there with the changes that we've made on the health and well-being front to all of those metrics improving and increasing over the years. So that's been one of the probably the key factors in why we've chosen this route and why we're so serious about it. Recruitment and retention, obviously we want to, and employer brand actually, you know, we want to ensure that we're seen as a desirable place to work, that we're focused on people, that, you know, as Aileen was saying earlier on, that people nowadays, they're coming into interviews and they're wanting to know what you can give them. It's a very different kind of environment maybe to when I was young, and it's really you've got to provide proof, and you've got to show that this is something that you're really serious about, and that this is somewhere that they can progress and develop and enjoy their work, and create relationships with colleagues and with guests and everything else as well. The last point I have there is just the inclusive culture. I suppose, again, just to make sure that it is a supportive atmosphere for everyone involved, and that we're, you know, constantly communicating, that we're embracing diversity, and that we value everyone who works here, everyone who comes to stay here, and that there is that culture there of real kindness across the board.
Okay. Sounds comprehensive, Fergal.
Thanks very much, Jim. So the next slide I have there is the LEA. It's to do with the LEA Research Index. This is a workplace wellbeing index that's conducted every year by LEA Healthcare, and they present insights into workplace trends from the employee's perspective and also from the employer's perspective. So as you can see there on the figures, it's showing 38% of people surveyed last year reported feeling anxious frequently or all the time. So there's a real issue there. You know, there's an epidemic of anxiety out there, and we've got to be really conscious of that, I think, in all workplaces, to ensure that we're mitigating it as best we possibly can. On the right hand side there, you can see that the top 5 reasons for feeling more stressed. The rising cost of living and money worries were the two top ones there, which they've really kind of exploded in the last few years in this survey. And I suppose there will always be concerns around that kind of thing, but we're really seeing that in the last few years. And again, we've just got to be conscious as leaders in the hospitality sector and also across the board, that these are real issues and real challenges for people out there. So we've got to be very mindful of that.
I mean, 3 of those 5 really coalesce around the idea of financial well-being, really, don't they? So that's very significant.
Absolutely, yeah. So I just included some logos here of different groups that we collaborate with, that we work with. Some of these we've been with from the start. Jim, they've obviously, you know, we've got the local councils here, we've got Fáilte Ireland, the local colleges. They're all really important to our business. We also work a lot with employability and the National Learning Network. So we've employed a lot of people that have come through those sources over the years. And again, that's just been a really kind of, for the culture of the business and everything else, that's been really important for us. It's something that guests react really well to as well. So that's been something that's been really good for us. Site is a local organisation here that where various different stakeholders, including the local councils, the HSE, have come together, and it's focused on mental health in the workplace. Really good organisation. It's local to Cork here. But they've been a really good support to us over the last year or so, and it's been something that we've really enjoyed getting involved in. The second one there is LIFT, which is Leading Ireland's Future Together, it's more about leadership and creating a culture right across the board within organisations around leadership and giving people a voice and encouraging, I suppose, the leaders to listen and to kind of bring forward people and to progress them within the organisation. We're just starting out on that journey. We've just spoken to them over the past few weeks, but it looks a really good organisation. It's something we're definitely anxious to get involved in. And again, it just comes back to just ensuring that the staff have a voice and that they have a way of developing through the hotel and enjoy working here in the process.
So you've really been very innovative in terms of tapping into the resources that are out there that do not necessarily require huge investment, but a lot of knowledge that is out there, and doing the research and then introducing that into the organization. Yeah,
totally. I suppose it's been, for us, you know, we're like everyone else, we operate on tight budgets and all the rest of it. And it kind of goes back again, what Aileen was saying earlier on, we've got to get everyone kind of engaged in this process. So it's part of my job, I suppose, to sell all of this to our owners and to the board of directors, and to ensure that everybody's on board with it and that they see, you know, the benefits to the business and also the benefits to us as managers and as leaders, so that, you know, the whole process is fairly seamless. And then there are so many supports out there that are, you know, practically either free of charge or don't cost a massive amount of money. So that's really a big part of my role, is just to ensure that the owners of this business understand the reasons why we are doing all these things. And a bit similar to what you said earlier on, you know, working on the nighttime economy with the local council or with the city council, or working with the Cork Business Association or whatever else. You know, again, that's time out of the hotel, but I think the owners do recognise the importance of all of that and see that there's a correlation between that and the success of the hotel and our profile and everything else.
Okay.
So just to talk a little bit about the leadership style that we have here, and this is something we've worked on really from the start, and it's I suppose all around trust and ensuring that, you know, that people again feel that this is an environment where they can innovate, that they can take risks, that they can ask questions in meetings, and that they're not going to get shot down, and that, you know, everyone has a voice, I suppose. For empathy there, again, I suppose it speaks for itself, essentially, that you recognize other people's feelings, and that you're conscious that everyone's got their own perspective, and that you need to listen and you need to understand that your view on something may be very different to somebody else, and to embrace that and to understand it. Sustainability is something that's obviously has become huge in recent years. It's a big issue for the hospitality sector. You know, things like food waste and things like that are huge for us. There's no question about it. We've done an awful lot of work on that in recent years, and it's something that, again, that staff really react very well to, because they see that, you know, well, they see the benefits to the business on the one hand, but also they feel, and we all feel, you know, a moral obligation here to get involved and to do the best that we possibly can. So that's been a really good progress, or a really good process for us. On the wellbeing front, I suppose that's everything we're talking about this morning. That's all to do with the experience of working here, and just to ensure that everybody feels a part of it, and that if somebody is struggling, or if someone has a a reason not to feel like they are a part of the overall organization, that they have a voice and that they've got support here and they've got people who can talk to them. The collaboration, I suppose, that's a case of kind of everyone working together, ensuring that teamwork is key to everything we do, that we've got shared goals, clear objectives for the future, and an ability to challenge and to call each other out if we feel that we're not performing in certain areas or that we've slipped back or whatever else.
Okay, so again, going back to the importance of the core pieces of the relationship in terms of being straight and honest with each other, which mightn't be the most comfortable at times, but is important in terms of the overall scheme of things.
Absolutely. That if you're going to have this kind of culture, I suppose you've got to accept that there will be times that you have to put yourself out there, and you have to accept that there will be criticism, or there may be times where people will give you feedback that you may have to reflect on, and may have to change some of the practices that you have, or some of the directions or the initiatives that we put in place. And there's been lots, Jim, down over the years that we've tried to do that maybe haven't, caught the attention or caught the kind of interest that we might have expected. And again, going back to what Aileen said, there has to be a kind of this is all fluid. It's got to be flexible. It's got to be, the plan that you might have had in place 5 years ago has to change constantly, and it could be very different if you go back and read that now at this stage. So just on the overall, the benefits to Wellbeing to the Kingsley, the figure on the left there is a 32% reduction last year in staff turnover. That's always a challenge for the hospitality sector, in the sense that we do have people coming in. It's a 24-hour business. We've got 220 staff on our books in total, but quite a large number of them might be working, relatively small numbers of hours per week, and they might be in college or doing other things. So we kind of have to accept that there is a cohort there that will only be with us maybe for the duration of their college course in MTU or UCC, and it's fantastic. They're all great young people coming in. From our perspective, they're well turned out. They're well able to talk to people. But then there's an onus on us, I suppose, to ensure that we're training them and getting them to a level that we need them to be at for a 4-star, deluxe property that we are. So there are challenges there, certainly, but definitely, again, on the health and well-being and this drive that we've been on, we've really seen the improvement in that. And of course, there's a big group then here who have been with us from the start. This is their career, this is their profession, and we want to develop those people. We want to ensure that we're giving them every opportunity to continue to grow within the business. And
a 32% reduction in staff turnover translates into euro amount pretty quickly, because that's pretty expensive to maintain, to train people up, to recruit them, to find them, to get them to be productive, and so on. So that's a huge achievement.
Absolutely, yeah, and I suppose it's coming off the back of COVID and the uncertainty that we all experienced for that. But hospitality particularly was hard hit in that sense that places were closing, staff were looking at it, moving into different sectors and everything else. So we had a really difficult couple of years there, but yeah, we're 100% moving in the right direction now, I would say. The 3 figures on the right, Jim, are related to the Great Place to Work survey. We joined Great Place to Work a couple of years ago. We just found that a fantastic process from the start. It's been brilliant to work with yourself and Cathal and Marina and the rest of the team. And as you can see there, the growth in the survey from the first year, teamwork grew by 10%. And this is all feedback directly from the staff. 15% up on people who are willing to give extra to get the job done. And then 15% of people who enjoy coming to work here and look forward to coming to work here. So we're really pleased with those metrics. We're always looking as well at the feedback, and this is that's the big advantage to us, is that it gives us a framework, and it allows us. It's a 12-month process really, from one survey to the next. And it's not something, again, it's cultural. You can't just kind of sort of say you're going to dip into this, or you're going to kind of focus on the month before the survey, because staff will see through it and they'll immediately call you out over it. So this has to be a kind of a lived experience for all of us, and that's really, it is something that we were already doing, but I think the Great Place to Work element of it has given us that framework, and that's really helped us.
Well, I do notice with both Aileen and yourself, having had the pleasure of working with you, the exquisite attention that you pay to any form of feedback. Like you both are really brilliant listeners.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So on the last couple of slides, really here, I've just kind of put together some photographs of the various people working here. HR, we've got Katrina Sheehan and also Charlie Deneen, who's our director of HR for the group. So they provide a fantastic support for all of us, and they give us that HR expertise that you were talking about earlier, Jim, that I don't necessarily have. So I kind of have ideas about how I want to do things, but they're the ones who actually put all the building blocks in place and do all that work. So then we have our KWell team. The KWell team was put in place a few years ago. It was developed and run by our spa development manager, Melissa Jones, and her team in the spa. So they did fantastic work on all of that, and they're continuing to do it. And then last year we put in place a committee for the Great Place to Work as well. So that's a kind of an umbrella committee, if you like, which has kind of encompassed some of the KWell activities into it. But they do fantastic work, and they meet every week or every 2 weeks to go through all the different initiatives that are in place. They report all those back to me and to Katrina in HR and to the rest of the senior team. And that committee is drawn from all around the building. So it's all different levels of the organization. Everyone's got a voice. They're constantly talking. They're sending out initiatives and ideas on the communication platforms that we have within the building. So it's a process that is kind of ongoing. It's always evolving, but it's been fantastic for us. So that's been one of the key changes that we've made over the last couple of years, I would say.
The level of collaboration is just critical to both organizations, really. Then that's a very consistent message with what we're hearing today.
Absolutely, yeah. That's just a list. I'm short on time, so I won't go through everything on it, Jim. But that's just a list of the different actions that we've taken and things that worked really well for us and that the staff have reacted really well to. So if anyone has any questions or wants any more information on any of those, I'm more than happy to provide it.
Yeah, and I think that was our outcome for today, was to set up this conversation. So, given the level of interest in it, we'd certainly be engaging in that again. And both of you have been very good to share. I'm going to say a very broad-based and inclusive approach, which is very focused on measurables in terms of deliverables, very focused on being inclusive both of leadership from the point of view of the business and the organization, the success of that, but also listening to people in terms of their engagement with the whole piece. And one interesting question, just while we have a few minutes, well, there are many interesting questions, but one that particularly piqued my interest was an organization that's going through a right-sizing program, which is another word for redundancy as far as I can see, to the extent which I know that. How under those circumstances, under very challenging circumstances, when the chips are down, and each of us are in workplaces long enough to know that comes around, what does health and well-being go out the window, or what happens?
I don't mind taking that. Jim, we did go through a right sizing a few years ago, just during COVID. Obviously rugby stopped and money stopped coming in, so we did have to go through a period of redundancies. And I think the fact that we did have a health and well-being culture in place really stood to us. There was trust already built. People kind of understood. The CEO, the senior management team really communicated out. So it wasn't like a new thing. Like town halls weren't a new thing. That was, was ongoing, it was happening. So people kind of, obviously it was a really, really difficult time for those involved particularly, but across the board it was really, really difficult. But no, it didn't stop. It kept going. We continued on with the well-being across the whole COVID and difficult period. But I think what really stood to us, as I said, was that it was already in place. We weren't kind of starting something new. And I think it stood for us for that process to have it in place.
It kind of underpinned it.
Yeah.
Fergal?
Yeah, we had a difficult period, I would say, during COVID, as I said, Jim, and as recently probably as when we opened the hotel as well 10 years ago, it was we were doing it on very tight budgets at the time, and we had to kind of manage the business in a particular way at the time, and probably looking back on it, we maybe didn't have the focus on this kind of well-being side on it as much as we do now at that stage. But that's been a process, and it's been a learning process for me, I would say, and for the whole team here. For the most part, the whole senior team that have worked in the hotel have been here from the start. And
Fantastic.
so we've come through lots of kind of difficult periods, work together.
I'm just going to jump in there and say thank you both, and thanks to everybody who joined us this morning. An ongoing discussion, I'm sure. Very thankful for the effort that you put in here and how kind you were to spend your time. And thanks for everybody to join us. And congratulations on your awards.
Thanks a million. Thanks
Thanks
everyone.
so much, guys.
Thanks very much.
Now.
Thank you.
Take care.